Hi, everyone. Very nice to meet you. So I am here today talking about experience design and how not auditing your experience design is costing you money. We are here at CXPS talking about client experience and customer experience mainly, but the layer on top of that, or leveling that up, is experience design. So we'll get into that in just a second. First, I want you to take a quick look at this video. It's a bunch of fish hanging out, doing their own thing, and that's kind of where we are right now. We just came back from lunch. We're all having our own thoughts, so I just want, if you'll indulge me for one moment, to have you all stand up with me really quick. Stretch up your arms. We've had a long day of learning. Stretch them out. Listen to what's going on in your mind. Let that clear out. Feel your heartbeat. Take a note of what's happening around you, the people, the environment, the sights, the sounds, the smells, all of those things. And then before we sit down, just let out whatever you're holding on to right now that might be holding you back. Just auditory, just woo! All right, on three. 1, 2, 3. Woo! All right, thanks. I like to start these sessions with a shared experience because we're all here when we come in the room. But I want us to be here. It's a video, it's not playing, but it's a lot of fish swimming together so nicely. Are we stuck, guys? Yep. So this is a beautiful school of fish now swimming cohesively because we've just had a shared experience. How does it feel, everyone? Perfect. Well, we can hop to the next slide then, guys. Maybe. All right, I'm Michael Donnelly. I am an experience design strategist, and that's where you can find me online. And a little bit about my background. I have a massive family. My mom's one of 11 and my dad's one of 5, so you're kind of always fighting for attention and understanding the experience around you. I also have ADHD, so I'm very hyperactively aware of my surroundings, and I'm constantly thinking of things that could potentially make it better for myself or for others. Well, with that, experience design always came naturally to me, but I didn't actually have the words to describe it. I didn't know what it was. Professionally, my background is I run an experience design studio called Red Suede Shoes. We've worked with clients like DHL, Microsoft, IBM, some of the bigs, all the way down to your nonprofits and your startups. And then I run a community organization called Forward Collective, where we focus on featuring women and people of color for the experts that we are, rather than the boxes that we check. And we've actually grown that into a social impact collective, driving professional inclusion through experience design. So the road hasn't been linear for me, as I know most of us in this room probably can attest happens in some of our careers. But what that looks like brings us back here today. We've just talked about one level of what we understand as experience, which is our tenure. My experience in my career. You all have that. We have that understanding. But when we talk about client experience, we're not talking about that tenure. We're also not talking about a shared understanding, which we've created right here when we started this session. We're leaning more into that third bubble there, which is a feeling, the experience we get from evoking emotion and interacting with one another, causing people to engage, and that gets us to that final point of active engagement. How are we working together to do something that is going to create a memory and create that shared time? And I apologize if I'm going a little quick. I have a lot of information, and I get so excited when we're talking about this. So I will work to slow down a little, but also cover the information. I just want to quick define experience for us overall. So it's a unique, interactional phenomenon resulting from conscious awareness and relative interpretation of the instances, occurrences, and touch points, marketing speak, we all know that one, those otherwise known as experience elements that are sustained or is sustained by the participant, you and myself, culminating in personally perceived results and memories. Why that's important to understand from experience design perspective is we're now applying that personal component in the other layers that go beyond what we know of our client experience. Experience design is the process of intentionally orchestrating that experience and those elements to provide opportunities for participants to co-create with you. So like when we stood up together, we were doing something together. We were co-creating that moment. And that's a little bit of what the difference is we're going to talk about here and why it's important to pay attention to that collaborative approach. And we're sustaining those interactions that lead to results that are desired by the participant, you and me right now, the designer of this experience, but in other cases, you as the designer. So this is an initial diagram of experience design, kind of bringing that customer-client experience together with your employee experience, your EX, and your branding. I found this a couple years back, and I've kind of added onto it to develop what I want to talk to you a little bit more about today with the time that we have. So we know what customer experience and CX is. We know what our employee experience is. We're familiar with our UX, our branding, the holistic marketing journey. But where we're really diving into is that core, which also layers on cultural experiences. So what's going on in the world, in our community, in our lives. And then the individual experience, what our perceived reality is. And that's important because when we talk about our client and customer experience, it's what's done to and for the client. But when we talk about experience design, it's what's done with the client's participation and understanding their world, where they're coming to the table at. We don't know if they're a mom at home with 4 kids that have been homeschooling or hanging out trying to figure out soccer practice. We don't know if there's someone who is really focused on leveling up the next level of their career and really doesn't care about which tool they use to get there. They just need a tool, so you might be that solution. They don't care, they just want it to go quick. So there's a lot of different variables that we're coming to the table with, which is why personas can sometimes be complex or complicated. So if experience design means all the things, how do we put this into practice without going nuts? Well, ultimately, it's about framing. And I'm going to come back to my notes here for a second because I want to make sure I outline this in the best way possible. But if experience design is everything, all we do as the humans, the designers, is work on putting that into a frame. And that becomes what you, the designer, call attention to, what you, the individual creating the experience as the designer, call attention to. So we want them to pay attention to how they're feeling in that moment, and how do we guide them to understanding what that nuance is. So as the user, as the customer, and you'll notice I'm not using the word viewer or audience because they're participating here, and how we prioritize the resources that we have at that moment, whether they be abundant and or limited, as we're focusing on what we're calling their attention to. So as part of that, I really, really, really want to underline the rule of the under-promise, because a lot of times when we get into these types of conferences, we get really pumped up and we want to market to our customers and tell them everything we can do. And yeah, if you can't do it, fake it till you make it and get there. Go, go, go. Well, that's great to get the customer, but we want to keep the customer. We want to create a long-standing relationship with that customer. So we want to delight them rather than disappoint them. So it's better to walk that line and figure out how to do it, of getting their attention and engaging people while being cautious not to sell yourself short. So you have to allow people some space to be delightfully surprised by your thoughtfulness and your consideration. And that's what experience design really is at the core, is being so considerate. Because if you're thinking about each of the different elements that happen throughout our day, when we're meeting with a customer, it's easy to rush right into that sale. It's easy to rush right into that, oh, I've got a gift for you. I've got this delivery for you. I got this right here. We're ready to go. Without taking a moment to say, hey, how's your day? Did you enjoy lunch? What's going on? Oh, okay, well here, and then offering something back. This is what's going on in my life. Here's how I'm engaging with you. We know this is relationship management. We know this is relationship development, but that's also a level of cultivating the experience. And not doing that just with your customers, but also thinking about that for your employees, as their boss, as their manager, as their colleague, because they then interact with the customer and pass along whatever experiences that they're carrying into that interaction component as well. So experience design is not just a quick checklist I can put up here. Well, I do have some diagrams I will show you. It's not just a recipe or a series of maneuvers. It's a way of thinking and practicing intentional inclusion as we're thinking and being considerate at every step. And I am aware of the experience of us hearing the dishes cart through here too now. So I want to call us back to the moment of intentional inclusion. And what that means and how we can ask that and be a part of that is, how will X, whatever's going on, impact Y, the person, the actual human being that I'm working to interact with. And this can bring in all of the DEI language, the DEIB, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging language and thoughtfulness that we want. This can bring in all the diverse abilities. This can bring in all of those things, because as we're creating, well, we can't create for everyone. We can create for the people that we share values with, who ultimately, whatever persona they are, is the shared values people that we want to have as our customers, that we want to work with. And that's where we're cultivating these bigger scale experiences with. So, auditing your experience design is like a checkpoint in a video game you're familiar with. You're already creating the customer experience. Whether you like it or not, you're here, so I know you like it and I know you're part of it. You're already creating the employee experience. Whether you're really paying attention to it and calling action to the employee experience in your handbook and your SOPs, you're already creating some form of brand experience, whether that's intentionally through thoughtful user experience, UX, social interaction, emails, all of those touch points, or whether it's just, yeah, we have a website and some social. It's already happening, whether you're doing it intentionally or not. So that's why you're familiar with this video game, and doing the audit is a checkpoint for you to then say, hey, let me take note of all the things that we're doing, start to cultivate some intentionality around that. So it's an opportunity to meaningfully understand where you're at, and then to move from a place of being reactive to proactivity, or being proactive, and engaging in that, what we talked about before, active participation with your clients and customers. So how do you audit your experience design? Here is the process that I like to use, starting with communication and understanding these core principles. What are you saying and how are you saying it? Not just what you're messaging, but what are you saying? What are each of the words you're choosing? Your word choice is so fundamental, and it seems so easy. It's easy to be flippant about which word what, because it's just words. It's just what we're saying. But each word carries weight and may actually cause someone to have a different experience. Framing things in one way versus the other. For example, quick side note, I hate the word empower. I hate that it's used to say, let's empower women. Women have power. We all have power. It's just about how we exercise that. So empowering is like something that you're doing for me instead of doing with me. That is something where most of the organizations that want to empower women have great intentions. And I'm not saying they're bad. A lot of them are good. They don't speak to me because that's a different value system. So it's really, really specific on how we're being intentional with each word. It could feel like a good word and hit somebody the wrong way. Content, what are you sharing? How are you sharing it? What are you putting out there for people to see? Community, who? Internally and externally. Competition, well, we're not measuring by the competition. We need to know what's happening. We need to know who people are benchmarking us against. And then we should look outside our industry, because whether we're thinking competition as industry, there's alternative ways to look at competition, as in similar practices, maybe not in the same field. So services industry. You don't only look at the accountants, you look at the lawyers, you look at all of the others that are doing things that are similarly targeting a client with the same sales funnel or cycle. And then what's usually left out, because we're tired and we've already gone through this whole process, and like, who has time for looking at the whole world, is to understand the culturally relevant solutions, or culturally relevance around it. What's going on in the world at large, your community, and that's what's going on in their world are things to pay attention to. And then practice active consideration throughout the entire process. So after you've done all that, looking at it, and it's thoughtful. It's not something you can just sit down in an afternoon. It has to be something that you think about over time, create space for. Then how do you poke holes in it? At the end of the day, people won't remember what you said or did. They'll remember how you made them feel. At the end of the day, people won't remember what you said or did. They'll remember how you made them feel. A few key takeaways here for you. Experience design lives at the core of, you guys know these acronyms, so I don't have to say them all. CX, EX, UX, culture, and individual experiences. Client experience is equal to, and for, experience design is with. Experience design is what you frame and call their attention to while you're prioritizing the resources, both abundant and limited, of what you're working with. The rule of the under-promise, be considerate and practice intentional inclusion, And the core experience audit considers your communication, content, community, competition, and culture. But wait, there's more. I will be doing a follow-up session in a little bit, talking a little bit more about how to actively do an experience audit, because I know just a quick diagram doesn't always help, and there's like 27 million ways I can geek out in the definitions. So if you'd like to join me at 2:15, that's where I'll be, and this is where you can contact me. And I believe, Ryan, I stay up here for some questions. All right.
Back to the perfect. There you go. If we could
Thank
switch
you,
back.
everyone.
Thank you, Michael. It's wonderful.